Hey guys, this is the Guardian Dark Angel saying, hey, what's going on? Um, so this isn't a topic that I would normally make a video about, but I want to make one because even if what I add to the conversation is very minimal, I still do want to talk about it because I feel like it's warranted. And also because I feel like there's a lot of give or leeway that we're not seeing because we're not really in the know. But there's also another reason I wanted to talk about this topic too. So recently, the VTuber agency VShojo, US based, I believe, lost two founding members and they are losing a third talent. The talents that they have lost being, if I remember correctly, Vebe, Silvervale, and they are going to be losing Nanners now. And that's kind of rough because that's three of their largest talents in general. And I don't really know specifically why they're leaving. Supposedly, it has to do with the renewed contracts. Potentially. But what bothers me is the fact that I understand why VShojo became an agency. They wanted to kind of give a home, so to speak, to US based indie VTubers who would probably not have the potential to get into companies like HoloLive or Nijisanji or, other companies like that. And unfortunately, those are the only two big ones that I'm familiar with because they're large companies. Um, Honestly, and all things considered, I was actually hoping for their success. But admittedly, I've been pretty negligent to watch their content a lot of the time, um, which part of it is mostly due to the fact that I just haven't been watching VTubers as much lately. But the other reason is because I'm still a little just kind of like scorned isn't the right word, but the whole incident with Nuxtaku kind of like really rubbed me the wrong way. And if you're watching this video and you don't know about the whole Nuxtaku controversy, you can watch the dozens, if not hundreds, of videos about the topic on YouTube. But the long story short is the fact that Nux was public about him and another person potentially being drafted by VShojo or, supposedly getting an invitation who could have been a part of VShojo or something like that. I don't remember specifically, but there were users being targeted by their email addresses and scammed and potentially like with high risk of swattings, or they were doxed essentially. And Nuxtaku, having been doxed himself, wanted to come out and put some information forward. And he came with receipts, but to be fair, there's a lot of people who just don't like him. And because they don't like him, they used that as a weapon against him to say, oh, well, he was in the wrong because if anybody said that they were uncomfortable with him making that knowledge public, then, he should have just obeyed them. And I'm just like, that's not how friendships work. If I had a friend tell me that they were uncomfortable with me putting some information forward that dealt with a company that they were a part of, I would weigh their opinion. But if that like affected me and other people and the company did not come out and say anything, I would be a little slighted, and I would have to look out for not just me but others as well and be like, do I just leave this sitting in the background, or do I come out and do I say something about this? And he did what he thought at the time was the right thing to do. And there were apparently people in VShojo who didn't like Nux that much and used it as an avenue to absolutely throw him to the coals. And I think that that's really effed up because so many people came out with statements against him from VShojo, and he had been nothing but great to them, us publicly. Grant you, I don't know if he was some like weird like White Knight creeper behind the scenes. Nobody can know for sure because we don't know their interpersonal like interactions. But at least some of them, specifically one Zentrea, actually apologized to Nux because she apparently dogpiled on him, not knowing the entirety of the story of what was going on. But several members very much just dumped on him. And regardless of whether you liked Nux or not, doesn't really matter. It's that he had the best, intentions at heart, and he wasn't trying to smear the company. He was trying to, you know, go along with, what he thought was the right thing to do. And what's more is he didn't put out a full statement originally, I don't think, until he got permission from the company, and then all of a sudden they just, I don't know, changed their mind. I don't know if it was Silver, Vey, I don't know if it was Mel, I don't know who it was. I don't know who was slighted by him at the company, because there were a lot of rumors saying that there was people who just at the company that didn't like him or whatever. I mean, I can't say for sure that that was the case, but given how quickly the backlash was, I would say that that's pretty likely. But I think that there's a relevance in bringing that up because I believe that that's part of what's going on right now is you are seeing the slow decline of what happened after that incident, because that incident more or less proved that VShojo as a company isn't necessarily forthcoming about everything that they do. And the amount of information that they have public, I believe, is significantly less than that of what HoloLive, has public. And I know that the sizes of the companies are different, but when we look at members like Silver, Vebe, and Nanners not renewing their contracts, it stands to reason that either the reason is because they just don't feel like they were part of the group anymore. Silver very much during one of her videos made it out like almost none of the other members really talked to her much or whatnot, but she made sure to go out of her way to say if she was friends with anybody before, before she joined, she'd still be friends with them after the fact. But then, with Vebe, it was more of there wasn't really much there to go off of. And then Kason recently put out a post on Twitter, which I'm not surprised, saying that if she was offered a better contract, of course she'd join a company who would offer her more money and better benefits. And so it stands to reason that the reason all of this is crumbling around VShojo is the new contracts and the lack of real community within the company as a whole. But again, I can only say this based off of speculation for what information we currently have available to us now. However, I do think that this is kind of a really bad situation for VShojo as a whole, because they just recently got on board Kason and Nazuna, and these were talents that were recently HoloLive. And that's important because I honestly believe that Kason, if she had not have joined VShojo and it had not been appealing to her, would have made her own company, her own VTuber company. And frankly speaking, I honestly think she should have, rather than joining VShojo. And it's not because I hate the group, it's because I don't see what the point of having a company is like VShojo if the benefits that you get from it are entirely limited. So, in regards to that, I think that VShojo's silence during the whole Silvervale uh, bullying campaign, which I don't care what anybody says, she was definitely harassed. And anybody who says that she deserves it or, it was for X reason, it is literally a video game, and a lot of people went out of their way to harass her, dox her, and dox her family over her playing a video game that the evil, mustache twirling, Nazi supporting, blah 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 blah, whatever other buzzword you want to use, Hitler, something something, transphobe, her IP. And you're a psycho if you really believe that. It was a game company who borrowed an IP and made a game. That's it. That is it. They made a game using an IP that a lot of people in this day and age have grown up off of, but because wrong speak and because of groupthink and a lot of other random BS, Silvervale got harassed for playing, and as did dozens of other people. Even the great and mighty Hassan Piker was like, "Oh man, I'm me and several of the people I know aren't gonna be even playing the game because and this is not how he said it, but this is gonna be me saying this is how he said it. I'm a coward, and the culture that I've helped foster in this country is telling me that I'm not allowed to play this game." Something like that. If you can't tell, yes, I hate Hassan Piker. I think he's a POS who is only in the good faith of people because he preaches socialism and occasionally freaking runs charity streams. Honestly, I don't think running charity streams makes you a good person. I just think that it's a good action to do, is to donate to charity. If you do it more often than not, congrats to you. But a lot of charity agencies in the United States are not good agencies anyway, and literally just take the money and the causes that they're supposed to go to typically don't really end up benefiting. Anyways, that's a rant for another time. Sorry to get off track. So the reason I wanted to talk about this whole thing is because I like the idea of companies like VShojo. But I think that if you're going to make a company and you're not going to do your best to make it the best kind of company that you can, you're going to fail. And one of the biggest things is you need to be able to form a community similar to the way Niji Sanji and Hollow Live does if you're going to have an organized group of VTubers. And more than that, you need generations of people. Like Fillion constantly collabs with Mel. You've had Silver and Mel also collab with Bao. And Bao and Fillion are not they're not VShojo. Honestly, I think that they'd be great for VShojo if VShojo was a functioning company and actually came out and protected their talents and had more general transparency. Which, if they need to hire a proper legal team, then that's what they need to do. And during the whole Nuxtaku debacle that happened with them, they kind of seemed like they didn't have a proper or good, legal team on hand, because if they did, or a PR team, they would have made a statement and they wouldn't have thrown Nux under the bus. They would have been like, look, we disagree with what he did, but fact of the matter is there's some stuff that's been going on. If you have received a letter from us or an email from us that is claiming that you are being scouted, please disregard it for the time being. We had a breach and, information was leaked and we apologize for any inconvenience. It doesn't matter whether it was like, oh, well, we were just hiding it so we could find the culprit. You should have been able to find the culprit off of the fact that they managed to send emails. Emails can be traced back to IPs, and IPs can be used to track down, information on certain people. And if y'all were in contact with law enforcement over this, and that's what they told you, not to make a public statement, sure, but at that point in time, once everything was said and done, a statement should have been released talking about the fact that Nux wasn't in the wrong, but he potentially interrupted, an investigation that was meant to look into a person who was doxing people who were quote unquote potentials for being in VShojo or hopefuls of being in VShojo. And the lack of a proper public statement, not just once, but more than once, on all of this kind of makes me feel like the company just threw him under the bus and then just buried the lead. And I think that that was extremely irresponsible. It wasn't transparent, and it wasn't a good look, and a lot of people, actually, myself included, stopped watching a lot of VShojo content because of it. Not because we didn't like the talents, but because it was just kind of really not. People were not particularly pleased with what had happened. And that kind of matters. But more than that, the whole Silvervale incident with Hogwarts Legacy makes things look worse for them, because they didn't put out a public statement saying, hey, this is one of our talents. This kind of behavior is unacceptable. We as a company, if we find that you've been harassing our, talents, we will report you to the proper people we need to, be it Twitter or be it to Twitch or YouTube or something. But the more I'm looking at it, the more VShojo just looks like a company that barely does anything for its talents more than just forms a collective with them so they can seem like a group, and maybe handles like legal fees and other things occasionally. And frankly speaking, that's not good. Like, you may end up with people like Mouse or Mel or Zen or Fruit or anyone else in VShojo, like seeing this and being like, oh, well, that's not correct. Prove me wrong. Where's the public record statement on what happened with the whole doxing situation? Where is the public statement on what happened to Silver? And before you say, oh, well, the talents made comments about it, that's not enough. If your agency exists there and the talent is part of that, it's an employee to a company. If the employee is not going to, or if the company is not going to back the employee, despite the fact that that person's front-facing, like, being is part of their offer to, a part of their job, you can't really, like, say that you're a company, or you're doing anything for these people. It's just like, oh, well, we're gonna pay, like, take a cut, and we're gonna pay them, and we're gonna handle like like minor like legal crap, but other than that, like they can do whatever. That's that's not convenient. At that point in time, it'd just be easier to find like a person online who's willing to help you with your taxes and just go solo. I mean, if y'all aren't doing like monthly collabs or bi-weekly collabs or entire like group collabs when you all get on like a Minecraft server or a multiplayer game and y'all all play together, then y'all just don't feel like a proper group. And I think that one of the biggest reasons that it's extremely likely that VShojo is going to fail, and I feel bad for any talents who get screwed over in the process, especially Mel, considering I believe she was one of the founding three or founding four. I think, yeah, I think she was in the works for trying to get all of this started. But it's just kind of sad because, when you watch a up and budding company, try to do their best, and then you get talents as large as Keisan and Nazuna. Like, that's ridiculous. Like, those are huge names, and they were the biggest in, like, two of the biggest in their industry at the time when things kind of, like, fell apart around them for various reasons. But there needs to be a lot more that goes into the company and comes out. And it was pretty clear by Silver's like comment that she really just didn't feel accepted as much, and she just wasn't being, or people just weren't as friendly towards her as much as maybe they had been in the past. And it's possible that she's still friends with Mel. Maybe her and Mel just don't talk anymore. I don't personally know. And truth is, we won't know. But being a loose knit collective when it comes to an organization like a VTuber organization, I don't think that that's necessarily the best thing in the world. I think that it's a great thing that if a person joins VShojo, I think that it's absolutely fantastic if they get to keep their IP, because VShojo never owned those IPs in the first place. Like, Keisan joined with her own IP. Now, Nazuna, on the other hand, I believe her IP belongs to VShojo. I could be wrong, but I think that given her entire situation, I believe actually that that her IP very well may belong to VShojo. But most other members joined with their own character and were not forced to transition it to a different character entirely. As such, they're able to keep their IPs. And I think that, from the standpoint of, like, I believe that from a standpoint of them doing that, they should be allowed to keep their IPs. And I think that if there was an indie VTuber company that, had generational additions, helped out with legal fees and, assistance with sponsors and collabs and other things, and actively like talked with their talents about what they want to see come out of the company, which it feels like to me that they just haven't. If one of the founding members can't even like feel accepted or feel like, I don't know, I don't think loved is the right word, but it's very clear based off of how she sounded that Silver sounded kind of alienated from VShojo. And when you're one of the first people to help start or found a group, for you to get to that point really just feels it's got to feel awful. I think that VShojo is in a really bad spot right now. I think that they need to be more transparent in the future. I think that they need to work to make their contracts better, and I think that they need to grow their PR or legal teams or administrative staff in a responsible way if they need to, because well, I just I don't know. It's clear that they're just not, being as transparent as they could be. You just don't see public statements from them as often as you could, and you don't see the community that they have the same way you would with companies like Hololive and Nijisanji. And I feel like that's kind of a huge deal, because if you can't get your talents to collaborate more than like once or twice a month with limited members, if you grow, you're not going to be able to get them to collab more often than that. And even then, you have to foster a environment of friendliness and almost borderline family within, that group. And you have to pull a Hololive. And I hate saying that because there's a lot of reasons I don't like Covercorp. And I think that they don't pay their talents as much as they could, frankly speaking. But they need to be able to showcase a outward appearance of being friends or family almost, and they just don't. I mean, with Hololive, you end up with Niji Sanji, you end up with like clips of their characters, and not just clips, but clips of collabs. You almost never see clips of collabs with VShojo members, just in general. And I think that that's a shame. And I'm not saying they'd never collab together, but I mean, again, going back to Silver, and yeah, there are going to be a lot of people that are happy to see her go, and a lot of them happy to see her go are happy for psychopathic reasons. Um, Not all, but I don't know. VShojo, if you see this, any of your talents see this, or which is honestly not likely because I am a non-existent YouTuber with very controversial topics on my freaking channel that are currently public. That's not counting all the stuff that's been hidden by me because I just don't want to deal with any real backlash most of the time. VShojo, if you see this or anybody sees this and who can talk to VShojo, they really need to get their heads out of their rears, because they're just not doing everything that they can do to make things better for themselves. They need to strengthen their contracts. They need to assure any indie VTubers coming in that it is 100% guaranteed that they're going to be able to keep their IP. But they also need to secure their talents. And they need to present an outward appearance of community, family, friendship, etc., even if people behind the scenes don't really like each other that much. And they need to foster that kind of environment in the discords that they're all in and whatnot, so that people want to collab with each other, and they want to get to know one another, and they want to be friends. And there needs to be like scheduled collabs where you get a lot of members to all join together, scheduled collabs for certain, two people to join up and collab together, even if it's forced, honestly. There needs to be an outward appearance of community. The pay needs to be worth it, and frankly speaking, the company needs to step up and protect its talents. Because if it doesn't, they're not going to feel welcome. I mean, honestly, I didn't see if VShojo ever put out a statement in regards to Silver about the whole Hogwarts Legacy thing. And if they did, the fact that I didn't see it, despite literally so much coverage of it, it wasn't strong enough. And they didn't do enough to go out of their way to make sure that they met, you know, the issue with an actual response that wasn't just a statement. And again, I honestly think that this downward spiral started with the whole Nux drama. You had a guy who is friendly with, seemingly friendly, and collabed with a lot of the talents from VShojo, and who he felt they were his friends, and he showed receipts of having permission from the head of the company or heads of the company who were like, yeah, no, we'll check your video before you post it, and you can post it as long as you leave XXXXX out of the video. And he respected their wishes. He did. And he has had trauma in regards to him being swatted, I believe, after having been doxxed. That's a traumatizing experience for anyone. And I can see wanting to come forth and be public about it so no one else ends up having that happen to them, because being swatted can be lethal. Even if it's not always, it can be. The potential is actually relatively high. So for VShojo to not put out a statement, a proper statement, or a warning to the people who are potentials, etc., that's 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 more than just irresponsible. That's borderline, that's negligence, like gross negligence. That's saying, oh yeah, any VShojo hopefuls, yeah, they're gonna be bait for us to draw this guy out who did this. It's like, no, stop it from happening and do what you can to track them down after the fact. Do as much damage control as humanly possible to stop people from getting hurt. The company needs work. I don't know who's in charge of the company. I don't know who the owners are. I don't know if Mel is an owner or a board member, or the actual CEO and she just leaves management to a different person. I don't know all of what's going on that front. All I know is that the company is literally on fire, and they need to step up their game or they're not going to survive. Because if I had to make a guess on what's going to happen next, it's going to be that the next person to leave, because there will probably be more people leaving, it's either going to be Zen or it's going to be Mouse. Because Mouse has so much power behind her that if she wanted to join an agency that gives her more, she is well capable of dealing with any potential loss of pay or otherwise. And honestly, if she wanted to pick up freaking Nanners and start a company between her and Nanners, I mean, they have the pull between just the two of them to do it. And the more competition in the indie VTuber scene, the better, in my opinion. But we need to see real change in these companies. And in order for a lot of these companies to survive, like I said, you've got to have an outward appearance of friendship, family, and community. And you also need to be fair to your talents, but you also need to protect them in general. If VShojo had a problem with Silver playing the game enough to the point where they could not, as a company, publicly come out and say, hey, lay off, otherwise we will take appropriate actions on each platform that we see the harassment on, then what are they really bringing to the table if they're not going to protect their talents? At least Mouse came out and she said that these people are freaking insane or crazy. But most of the people who did come out in support of Silver really felt like their heart wasn't in it. That they didn't be like, guys, it's a game, just GTFO. It felt like there was just like, oh yeah, well, the game is a thing, and maybe people shouldn't play it, blah blah blah. Oh yeah, no, 100%. Just let the entire company that decided to make a game outside of the direct influence of the author of the IP, yeah, let them all starve. Let their families all starve. That sounds, ethical. Totally ethical to just say, hey, they bought the wrong IP for us, so we're going to bully and harass them. God. I didn't mean to make this video almost 40 minutes long, but the fact of the matter is VShojo needs to get their head out of their rear ends and needs to look at brass tacks for what's going on and see that they need to make changes. Because otherwise a new agency is going to come up, it's going to form, and it's going to steal all of the talents from VShojo. It's going to pick up people like Bao and Filian and others, and it's going to propel itself into stardom, and they're going to offer so much more, and that's really going to suck for VShojo. But anyways, that's all. I'm beating a dead horse at this point. Anyways, this is the Guardian Dark Angel. Peace out.